being said, I just announced the new thing that I'm going to be at this week. Well, not this week, but I announced this week that I'll be at this new thing. It's taking place in Middleborough at the Birtwood School and the Alley Theater. They can't have people inside. So what they've been doing during the pandemic is they have had outdoor things in the back. They have, downtown Middleborough. Yeah. They have that nice, parking area in the back. I shouldn't say nice. It needs to be paved. But they have that great parking area in the back. They do have good space, yeah. And where they're doing this event is a nice little patio area. And they have outdoor heaters and tables with umbrellas and all that. And so we're going to be doing an evening of spooktacular ghost stories and legends. So I'm going to talk a little bit about ghosts. I'm going to talk a little bit about, what I think ghosts could be. And then once we've laid that groundwork, I'm going to start getting into some of the spookier stories of the area. And it's a new program that I've never done before. Some of the stories you might have heard before, but, it's a new program. And I've got a couple of libraries that are interested in it. So I'll give you all the details on that a little bit later on. And also I'll be speaking in a couple of libraries, but those are going to be virtual. So you can check those out wherever you are. And virtual events are great. I'm so glad that the paranormal world is embracing these virtual events. And we're going to talk with Tony a little bit about that because I know he's involved with some of these too. But to be able to connect, whether it be a lecture where you're sitting there with a PowerPoint and you're able to kind of show it to everybody. First of all, it's great doing it in that regard because you don't have to bring your projector with you. And you don't have to say to people, can everybody in the back see that? And have people be like, wait, can you go back to that slide? So you're able to put it right on their screens. So it works out great. And also the fact that you get the chance to see some of these locations. So instead of me going and, presenting about the Lizzie Borden house, a few weeks ago, the Dark Zone actually broadcasts an event from the Lizzie Borden house. And so people actually get to go and see what's going on in the house. And then they were connecting remotely with people. And it's a new
paranormal
dimension.
Zoom.
It is. And it's a whole new dimension of it because you get to see inside places differently than television.
Right. It's not a bad idea. Not a bad idea at all. Virtual.
And listen, we've been talking about this for a long time. We've been saying, why don't we do these, where it's just us in the location and everybody else can connect virtually. And then we don't have to worry about, bringing all the stuff that we have to bring and carrying all the insurance and all that kind of stuff. The problem was the rest of society hadn't caught up to the virtual, connection. But now that everybody's doing it, so much easier. So we can talk a little bit about all of that too with Tony, but let me just bring him on here. Let's see. And one of the other things that we'll talk about too, as we were discussing, like I said, I definitely want to talk about audio. If I can get this other computer open, we'll play some EVPs that he's given us. We'll probably do that in the second hour because I need to figure out my password. And then, but one of the things that I really want to talk about is, how does the paranormal world help with, and I don't want to use the terminology, but in the new normal, how do they help us getting back to helping these historic places? So we can talk about all that and more. Let's bring up our guest tonight, Tony Rathman. He's joining us on the phone now. Good evening, Tony. Are you with us?
I'm here, Tim. Thank you.
And it's great to have you. Thanks for joining us. How are things out your way?
Good. Outside of, like you were saying, the whole COVID thing, which we were hoping would be long gone by now. But other than that, great.
And have you been able to get out into the field and conduct some investigations in the way things have been going?
We have for certain locations, which are obviously restricted. The number of people that are allowed in at a time is restricted. I mean, the new normal that you were referring to has definitely played a major impact. The saddest aspect of it is doing private home investigations has just come to a complete halt, even though these people still may be having concerns or problems with paranormal happening. They don't want you coming into their home, you yourself and your team. It's dangerous going from house to house. So that's had the major and biggest impact due to COVID.
And with that, I mean, okay, fine. We understand that people don't want to have other folks coming into their house, and they probably shouldn't, even if they were happy, even if they were fine with letting people come in. But the problem is they can't get the help that they need now at a time when they're home more than ever and experiencing more activity than they've ever experienced before.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. It's a double-edged sword in that specific scenario. So it is unfortunate both for the homeowner who's experiencing it and for the people that know that they could be of assistance. It's a double-edged sword. They're both being cut on both sides of it.
I was thinking about this week. We may be able to investigate remotely. That's something that we can kind of help people. It's not a real full-fledged investigation, but maybe we can help people that need help, through Zoom in certain ways. But the thing that concerns me is how easily something like that can be manipulated by either side, really. But that it will allow you to at least have a face-to-face connection with somebody that's having problems, and it certainly wouldn't be anything that I would dub evidence. But it might be enough to kind of just at least calm people a little bit and give them, they want the help, they want to talk to somebody, but what they really want is for you to see what's going on yourself.
It becomes an outlet.
Correct.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just an outlet for them to express. Yeah. Any bit of that is a help.
Right. And any ear is a kind ear if they're willing to listen. So We mentioned at the top that the name of your organization is Entities Voices Paranormal Investigation. So I'm assuming, based on the information that you sent over and a name like that audio is a very heavy focus of yours.
Absolutely. EVPs were the driving force when we started out back in, February of 2010. And then EVPs turned to ITC. Then we started building spirit boxes. But yes, spirit communication is really the forte around which we function, and getting them to communicate with us is always our end goal.
And how did it come about that you did get involved in this? Because from what I understand, it wasn't something that you were particularly into.
Correct. My wife, when we got married, loved watching the paranormal shows, and she always tried to get me to sit down with her and watch. Of course, I tried, but and there's nothing wrong with paranormal shows, so don't get me wrong. But my father was a physicist, chemistry teacher, physical science teacher. So growing up, my background was always science related, and science couldn't explain it. I just kind of dismissed it. Well, she kept wanting me to watch these TV shows, and then finally one Valentine's Day she said, I want to do something different. I said, okay, what would you like to do? She goes, I want to go ghost hunting. And I thought, oh man. But of course, to appease her, I said, okay. Did a little internet research, found a haunted hotel here in the Phoenix area, at least one that had a reputation for it, booked a weekend for us, went out and bought her some inexpensive equipment. I figured it would be, after that weekend, be sitting in the back of a closet collecting dust. But I bought her a cheap digital recorder, a cheap night vision camera, and an EMS meter. Well, she went off, we went off, and had, for the weekend, the 2 or 3 nights we were there, I investigated with her, played along. Well, it wasn't until we got the stuff home and she started going through it. And one of the biggest shocks was the amount of EVPs that showed up on the recorders. Although we had some strange anomalies in photographs, we had even a catch on a video camera of a figure moving that was nowhere in the room when we shot it. But she kept calling me over, look at this, listen to this. And it really shocked me. For probably, the next month and a half, I was trying to wrap my head around how these things were showing up and how these voices were responding to the questions we were physically asking out loud. And we were one of three guests in the entire hotel. And there's like 7 floors, there's 325 rooms. I mean, there was no one around, and there was one front desk person and one maintenance man that was there. That was it. So most of the floors were completely empty. There was no one on them. And we had all these voices responding and answering questions. And it absolutely just shocked me to the point where my interest became so high with how this was happening. I think we investigated that particular hotel over 50 times in the last 10 and a half years, trying to see if we could, duplicate the responses, try to get more answers, and we could. And that's kind of how it started. And we just kept going back, and then we branched out, went all through Arizona, then we started going California, Nevada, Colorado, New Mexico. Of course, then we branched out all over the U.S. But that's how it started, and my wife really exposed me to the opportunity to find out that there was a lot more going on there than what I had any idea.
So with that in mind, I mean, not everybody gets something the first time that they start getting involved in this. Some people, it takes them years to even get some sort of voice captured on audio. In fact, the way that it used to be presented all the time was that, some people go their entire career without getting an EVP that would consider to be a Class A EVP.
Class A.
So,
yeah, correct.
I mean, how were you thinking about that at all as you were finding that you were getting stuff? Were you saying, this might be too good to be true, or were you just confident in the manner that you were investigating, and that was why you were getting the results you were?
Well, that thought probably hadn't crossed my mind because I was brand new. I really didn't know much about how it was supposed to work, what was typical responses. It wasn't until years later, having continued to do it, and of course, talking with other groups and other people and, playing what we had captured, only then did the realization that, what we had gotten the very first time we went to go do this was off the charts. And, part of it, like I said, was just so shocking to me, and I was trying to scientifically find answers, like, was there somebody in that room? Was there somebody on that floor? And, we went through all through that with the hotel because we knew all the people working there and said, can you check your computer system? Was there somebody on floor 6? Nope, nobody there. So the more we dug into it, the more, and over the years of continuing down the path, that's where we learned that first experience was really an icebreaker as far as what was captured.
The thing that I find interesting when it comes to people that do audio work especially is, I was kind of saying this at the beginning of the program, you have to have an ear for it. And do you feel that people have to come into it naturally with an ability to decipher the voices out of the noise? Or is it something that you can train yourself to be able to discover?
It's absolutely something you can train yourself to discover. The very first EVP, when I played it, probably the first 40 times, I couldn't hear what was being said. I could only know and recognize that was not what was said when we recorded it. I didn't even catch the words. And, after doing this over and over and over, that process of being able to pick out those words and being able to more clearly recognize them became stronger and stronger and stronger. So it's a learned procedure, but, part of me believes that when people talk about the difference between life and death, that there's a thin veil, that separates the two. We've seen that veil show itself over and over in a multitude of different ways. But the fact that when you're hearing EVPs, if you're not used to hearing them, you can skip right over them and not even know they happened. But if you've trained your ear to hear above and below where the normal speech is coming and know how to pick it out of the sounds, then you can pick it up relatively quickly. And we've seen that same thing happen between experienced people dealing with EVPs, where you'll play it once for them and they'll tell you exactly what you think you're hearing. But if you play it to somebody who's not used to hearing them, they're like, well, I heard some noise or I heard a shuffle, and that's all they hear.
The part that was difficult for me was being able to, it's almost like when you went and looked at those 3D posters in the mall back in the 90s, where you had to kind of learn to stop focusing so intently and look wider. And you have to
Right.
kind of listen wider too. You can't be listening to every little part of the hiss and every little part of the room noise and see if you can pick it out. You have to kind of just open your ears up and just see what kind of catches your attention.
You know, that's a great example, like with the posters, because you're exactly right. If you're looking at the detail in the design, you'll miss the 3D aspect that pops out. You have to widen that view. That was a great example, and EVPs work the exact same way.
Yanni.
Right. Laurel.
Yeah.
And the good investigators, they are the ones that I think are more open to different interpretations of what's being said. When somebody comes at me and says, can't you hear this? This is exactly what's being said. That worries me a little bit, because to me, that kind of certainty in it is probably, it's more them wanting to believe it than it necessarily might be that it's there. But when somebody comes
That's
at me and
correct.
says, I think that I'm hearing this, tell me what you hear, that seems to be the right approach. Is that the kind of the way that you approach in sharing the clips that you find?
Absolutely. We'll spell out what we hear, but we will never say with 100% certainty. People have different abilities, different hearing abilities. They hear tones differently. There are people that can hear higher tones better than other people, or other people hear lower tones. But so there is discrepancy because you can never be 100% sure. But you always have to look at everything you're capturing with that frame of mind that you may not be 100% correct.
I would also argue, too, that there's differences enough in what it is that we hear in regular conversation that, I wouldn't want to be that certain about what I'm hearing in an EVP, because I can have a conversation with somebody and say, wait, what did you say? Oh, because it sounded
Right.
like you said this.
Yeah.
Yeah, mistakes can be made. There's no doubt about it. And to claim with 100% certainty that you're hearing exactly what was being said, yeah, that's pushing the envelope, because you can't be 100% certain unless you could have that spirit come back and somehow explain to you, yeah, that's exactly what I said, and that's never going to happen. But there's always error, and you have to be cognizant of that, and you have to be aware of that just because that's what you're hearing. I mean, because my wife and I do this together, I can't tell you how many arguments her and I have had about listening to an EVP and completely disagreeing about what's being said. And of course, we throw those in the trash, because if two people can't agree with what it said, then you're going to get all sorts of answers from anybody else, and it's not what we consider to be a valid definition of what's been said.
For those who are, kind of on the fence with utilizing this as an investigative technique. First of all, I mean, I don't know why, but it's become something where people kind of have shied away from doing this. They feel like maybe that the technology now is, we have so much more at our disposal that I think electronic voice phenomena kind of falls by the wayside. But how important would you say that it is to be focusing on this compared to other types of potential data that you can collect?
Well, for us, and like I said, because we named our group 10.5 years ago Entity Voices, to us it's extremely important. One, when you ask a question and there's no outside influences, that the area in which you're asking the question has been somewhat solidified. Now, there's always examples where something else can go wrong, but when there's no outside contamination, or at least not an amount that's going to affect your audio, you ask a question and you get a direct and intelligent response that answers your question, when you can know with 100% certainty that there's not any other human being in there that could have played a joke or answered the question for you. That, to me, is some of the best evidence that can be captured. Now, I'm not against the new technology. I'm not against the new devices, because let's face it, every day we go out, we're looking for ways to find new answers, develop new devices that can help bridge that gap between communicating with spirits. But for me, out of everything that's out there, when I can get a verbal answer to a question I asked, and it can give me a straight, direct answer to the question I asked, I find that hard to beat.
I have a suggestion if you want to try it.
Sure.
I have a particular program. It's called Dragon. You may be familiar with it.
I am aware of it, yes.
I've tried feeding EVPs into Dragon, seeing if it will type out, the word. You're dealing with basically an objective sound system that is not going to be predisposed to.
But it also needs to be trained to your voice to work at its most proper.
At its most proper, but I've seen it work with various other people, saying words, and it picks up especially even with we'll call it, accents from people from various countries. So I tried a little experiment using EVPs, and for the most part, it did pick up the words that everybody was hearing.
Did you predetermine what you were hearing and then put it in, or did you put it in and say, "Oh yeah, what it says on the screen is what I think I'm hearing"?
No, predetermined. We all agreed that this sounds. I'll use the term hamburger. It said hamburger, and you play it for Dragon, and it wrote out the word hamburger. So, okay, even the machine is saying this is what this word is.
I had Dragon once for my regular work, and I figured out why they call it Dragon. Yeah. Because it just takes forever to get it to do anything.
Takes forever.
Yeah. The yellow fox jumped over the brown fence, period, new sentence. It's just such a pain. At that point, if you don't need it, don't use it.
That's a very interesting concept, though, and I know other people, and I've tried it myself, where you have an EVP that is Class A and so clear that you can use a speech to text, and it will match the words that are being said. Now, does that give it uncertain validity? No, it doesn't.
No.
But the other thing we do is we use what's called a voice print, and it's the spectrograph layout when a word is said. Mm-hmm. And you can turn around and grab your recorder, say that same word, run it through that voice print graph as well. And regardless of your tone of voice, if it's the same word, you can match that vocal print to the word that you think's being said, and that gives some validity to what you think's being heard as well.
Well, getting into that idea of being able to, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's all right. No,
but we've reached the point where we've developed a whole bunch of things directly related to trying to capture spirit voices, and we can get into and I'm sure we will in the next hour. We can get into all the apps and the boxes and all these different devices that'll basically allow a spirit to communicate in its, whether it be in its own voice and in its own words, or utilizing words that we're putting at its disposal. And it seems like this is I don't want to say, okay, in my experience, I'll qualify it with that. This is the most common way for them to be able to reach out and to communicate. And it seems to be the easiest way. So you would think we would put more focus on doing this kind of work. Or do you feel like enough work, Tony, has been done in this regard now that we do have kind of almost a standard operating procedure for which we should be following when it comes to collecting audio?
Well, there's some ground rules that definitely are kind of set and need to be followed. But have we done enough work on it? No, I don't think that at all. There's so many variables involved with how EVPs are left on the machine. There's the natural sounds that occur that they can actually use and manipulate to further pronounce the words that they're trying to say. There's so much information in a simple EVP that still needs very detailed examination. So no, I don't believe we're anywhere near the point to say, okay, that's a done deal.
But it gets to the point where the shiniest, flashiest new toy that people see out there, like that becomes what they want to utilize. And then, these tried and true methods that I've been doing there's probably some sense of people get kind of bored with the repetitiveness of investigating in a certain way and with a certain type of technique. But also, we don't have enough proof through these previous ways that just jumping to the next flashy toy that comes out there is only just solidifying what it is that we already know, which is that there's our spirits there, and it's not really getting us what we need to kind of show that to the people that don't already know that.
Completely agree. And that's why, back to your original question, no, I don't think enough work has been done. But if you look at the history of, paranormal investigation and how voices were captured way back to the original recorders that were being used, that voices started showing up on, which I think was some sort of a record player originally. But, they got them back then. And now we're using digital recorders today, and they're still showing up. And they were caught on tape. They were caught on every other recording capability. That history to me is a defining point that says, keep doing this, keep looking into this. This needs more information. This needs to be further evaluated and researched.
Yeah, and it's amazing to me how much people don't look into the history of this, because it does go back pretty far. At least as far as the way that we do it, I would put it probably back to the 1950s. But you can go back to Edison and the research that he was doing and trying to supposedly create a spirit phone. That has been kind of debunked,
right,
in terms of how serious he was about that. But if you look into like the work of Rodive, and then you've got George Meek, you've got the Spiricom.
Yep.
I mean,
Tesla.
Yeah, this is not a new thing. This is not something that we only started doing because people were doing it on TV. People have spent the better part of a century looking into this.
Right, and you're talking some pretty high class and intelligent people that were looking into those methods of recording EVPs. And like I said just a few minutes ago, it's that history of knowing that it was captured then and it's still being able to capture today, even with new digital recorders. That's why I don't feel that enough research has been done to and not even close to being able to solidify that data yet.
And one of the things that we'll get into coming up in the next hour is the devices that you utilize on investigations to capture these spirit voices. But I think it's safe to say that you have probably expanded the technology that you've used in that over the past 10 years. Oh,
yes. We have more. If we go to like a haunted hotel, which we do often just because they're easy to check in and you've got access to 80% of the place. But we'll show up for 2 nights and we'll have 22 bags worth of equipment coming with us. And they're like, how long are you staying?
That's always the part that people don't realize is, you can get all the great gadgets and devices to bring with you on a paranormal investigation, but somebody's got to carry it all in.
Right.
And sometimes the bags and the bags of the batteries sometimes are, even heavier than the bags of the equipment.
Correct.
So we will be taking a break here in a minute. When we come back on the other side, we'll talk more about this in depth, and we'll also play some of these clips. Just to make sure, I forgot to ask you this, Tony. All these clips that you have, they're all suitable for broadcast on the radio, right?
Yeah, the only one you probably don't want to play is the one labeled "F.U. Tony." Because that one's probably
well, I really, really do want to play it. I just don't know if I can. But maybe we'll add it into the podcast later on. But that's always the thing that I forget to tell people when I'm like, oh, send me some of your best EVPs. I forget to say, oh yeah, we're actually on a terrestrial radio station, so we've got to follow FCC rules.
I'd probably skip that one then.
Well, maybe we'll listen during the.
Yeah.
There you go.
So those are usually quite common, though. Most people don't realize that.
Well, especially if you're me, because they're always they're always swearing at me.
True.
I earn every bit of it, though, Tony.
True.
They actually are very common, especially if you've irritated an entity or spirit, or you're cleansing a house. And that one was from a house cleansing we did, and he clearly let me know he wasn't happy about what we were doing.
The Lizzie Borden house likes to swear at me too.
Does more than that to you.
Yeah, but the other stuff we can at least talk about on the air.
Yeah, true.
You can throw me downstairs and throw me up against walls all you want. I can tell those stories in public. But then when I go to like a library and I'm trying to do my Halloween lecture and there's a little old lady sitting in the front and I'm like, do I play this one or not? Do I just skip ahead? I don't know. The one that got really bad was when we have SLS camera footage of a ghost pleasuring himself. And when you see the video, there's no doubt that's exactly what's happening.
What he's doing.
And I promised a library lecture that if they all behaved and were a good audience, I would play them, the most mind-blowing clip at the end of it. And I actually had a lady that got up and walked out the minute she started seeing that, and she yelled at me and she said, "I thought you were a nice young man until this point." And I was like, I'm not the one that was doing it. It was the ghost.
Right, exactly. It wasn't me.
Hey, ghosts are only human.
Well, they were. So we'll take our break here. When we come back, more with Tony Rathman. We'll be talking about some of the ways that he collects electronic voice phenomena with his wife, and we'll talk about some of the equipment that they use. We'll also have the phone lines open with any questions for our guest. That's right, questions that directly relate to the guest, Lamone. 508-996-0500 is the number if you would like to call in. You can also email me during the program, tim@spookysouthcoast.com, or you can put them on Twitter using the hashtag SpookyLive. That's always the way that we try and monitor the things going on during the program. The other thing that you can do is if you're a member at midnight.fm, you can sign into the Discord server if you are a member at the higher levels, and you can post in the Spooky South Coast channel in the Discord server as well. I'll be checking that throughout the discussion tonight as we continue on talking about electronic voice phenomena. We'll also tell you when we come back about some of the things that are coming up for the spooky season that you can come out and get involved in, or stay home and get involved in some cases, because I know a lot of you'd rather just stay home. You know what's best about that is I'd probably rather stay home a lot sometimes too.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment. The Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Welcome back. Hour number 2 of Spooky South Coast here. Tim Weisberg along with science advisor Matt Moniz talking about the paranormal as we do each and every Saturday night here on WBSM and on SpookySouthCoast.com and on Midnight FM and on the Paranormal Radio app and on TuneIn. We have so many different ways that you can tune in and listen to the show. We try to make it as available to you as we can so that you can always listen to it. And if you've never heard the program before, or if you're new to it, if you've only been catching it for the first few weeks on Midnight FM that we've been doing these live simulcasts, keep in mind that you can get all of our past episodes simply by going to your favorite podcast service and downloading it. Just look for Spooky South Coast. You'll find them all right there, going back all the way to 2014, because 2014. Going back 14 years all the way to 2006 is what I meant to say, because we've been doing this show that long, and we are so excited that we will be hitting the 15th anniversary this coming January. So that's that's a pretty big deal, because I don't know if there's a lot of other programs that started back when we did that are still out there, still kicking, and it's good to be the old graybeards of paranormal podcasts. And I told you before the break that I would let you know about some upcoming things that you can take part in. On October 19th, I'll be giving a lecture for the Lakeville Public Library. That will be happening on about the Bridgewater Triangle, and they'll have all the information about that coming out from the Lakeville Public Library soon for you to be able to sign up. It will be via Zoom. And also on October 28th, I'll be giving a presentation, my presidential paranormal presentation for the Middleborough Public Library. That will also be happening via Zoom. Now, what we're asking on this, because there's a lot of folks out there who are listening to us from around the world. Thank you for tuning in. We love the fact that we have a global audience for this program, but also We're hoping that, if those Zooms are going to fill up, we want to keep those spots open for the local people. So if you're not a local person, but you want to check it out, just stay tuned, because we're probably going to be simulcasting those through our Facebook, so that you'll be able to still be able to watch it even if you can't get into the Zoom. We just want to make sure that, the Zoom's not full of people from all over the place, and then the library says, well, this wasn't for our patrons, because that's what they're really putting these on for. And I would hate to have to limit it to people only from that town. So we're doing this as a bit of a compromise. And then also, coming up on October 29th, as I mentioned, I'll be doing a special event for the Birtwood School and the Alley Theater to help them. You can go to this. You can actually sit outside at the patio tables with the patio heaters under the umbrellas, and I'll be presenting a spectacular evening of ghost stories and legends. It's happening from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. There will be food served from Central Cafe, and there will be full bar from the bartending service of New England. So you'll be able to have some drinks, eat some food, and hear me talk about ghost stories and share some ghost stories happening from 6 to 8 p.m. The bar will open at 5:30, and I'll be there at 5:25. I'll drink after it. No, actually, I got a show right after, so I don't know if I'll be doing any drinking that particular night. But if somebody wants to bring me over one, I never turn it down. But you can check that out, October 29th in Middleborough. For more details, just reach out to me, tim@SpookySouthcoast.com. There's not a lot of spots left for that. They're requiring a $20 per person donation to the school to get a spot there. But the spots were very limited as of yesterday, so they might even be sold out at this point. But that's okay, because Lorna said if it does sell out, we can look into adding another date, because there's certainly interest for it this time of year. People love to hear ghost stories, so we'll tell them that's what we do. Speaking of ghost stories, Monies, we're going to be live on Halloween. Oh, hey, how about I turn on your microphone?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be here, and we'll be doing a live show on Halloween. Not like we did the first time we were live on Halloween, where we pulled off a successful hoax. But
it was good. It was good.
We could probably just rebroadcast that one for Halloween, because we're never going to top it. We're never going to be able to pull that off again.
And that just came together in hours.
We had a conversation at the diner in the morning about, hey, let's try this.
Yeah.
And then just kind of made the rest of it up on the fly. But we will be here on Halloween, and also over Halloween weekend. Well, I don't think I can say anything yet, because I didn't see it up there yet. But I know that our guest, Tony Rathman. Tony, you've been taking part in some virtual ghost hunt events, right?
I have. The Dark Zone put on the Conjuring House, and then just last month did the Lizzie Borden House, which, was kind of just a fantastic event for so many reasons. One, they're just groundbreaking live interactions with the audience, where the audience not only gets like a full day of excellent guest speakers to talk about, the paranormal. And the Lizzie Borden House was a little different, because it was kind of a combination between, the unanswered murder mystery of who killed Andrew and Abby Borden, but then of course switched to paranormal after that. So they were both great events. And then there is one coming up in October, which I'm not sure if I'm allowed to mention yet or not, but it's going to be just an excellent event. But yeah, it was a fascinating way of being able to interact with everybody virtually. There were a few people at each location, but of course, because of COVID going on and because of the Lizzie Borden having restrictions on the number of people that were allowed in the bed and breakfast, there were some restrictions, but they did bring in investigators for nightly investigations, and they were doing spirit box sessions using the SD method, and it was just they're groundbreaking events, and being able to have that live interaction for guests to view stationary cameras in different rooms and actually be able to be virtual investigators at the location. I don't know how many guests we had catch something on a camera and, of course, record it, send it in, and say, hey, did you see this? Look at this. It's just, they're fascinating events, and they're only getting better. So
And so we can't tell you when the date is, because that's not up on the website yet. But on the website for the Dark Zone, that's the darkzone.tv, they have given away the location for the next event. So it'll be the Queen Mary. Which,
Correct.
Have you had the chance to be there?
I have. We've investigated before, and I got to tell you, we're thrilled to be able to do it again. So, there's so much activity that happens there, and there's so many spirits on the Queen Mary that, the one place that, if the Dark Zone's going to be able to really catch something good, the Queen Mary is definitely going to bring that opportunity forward.
I've never been there, but I'm going to be part of the Dark Zone event, so I'm going to find something else that I can talk about that'll be a little bit different. But we certainly have our share of maritime ghosts here in New England.
God.
So I pitch that as a possible topic that I can discuss, because, I mean, if you go back, one of the most famous ghost stories is the Mary Celeste.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
that sailed out of Marion, which is right here on the South Coast. Well, the captain was from Marion, Captain Briggs.
No, it did sail out of Marion. He was from Wareham, though.
Well,
Yeah.
at the time, everybody was a Briggs in Wareham and
Yeah,
Marion.
true.
So, and actually, they kind of still are. It's still one of the most
Family
popular
is
names
still
around.
there.
But that's what I like about this is, like you were saying, it gives you a chance to see inside and see an investigation being conducted, but it also gets people to come in from all over that can bring in different expertise that kind of adds to the experience overall. It's one of those shining examples, I think. And I'm not just blowing smoke because we're involved with this organization and helping them out with these events, but it's run in a sense where they're thinking, what will be the best thing that we can bring in for the viewer, and that's
Exactly.
what makes these things successful. I don't think.
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I completely agree with that. And, after each event they've done so far, The Conjuring, Lizzie Borden, I mean, they're always reaching back out to the people watching saying, okay, well, what else would you like to see? Did you like, they take polls. Did you like this? Did you like, which one did you like better? Can you rate these for us? So they're always adapting to make whatever is the next coming up event even better than the one that happened before. And the first two were amazing events. Like I said, groundbreaking, 24-hour full week for The Conjuring, 4 days for Lizzie Borden, and I believe Queen Mary's going to be 4 days as well, but something that's never really been seen or done before. And it's fascinating because not only do you get to almost feel like you're there, but you can interact not only with the other viewers, because there's chat rooms and there's online cameras, and it's just it's an amazing experience. And it's for somebody who hasn't gotten to see one or check one out, I highly recommend it.
The chat room was what got me too, because as I'm sitting there getting ready to do, and I did my part for Lizzie Borden from here, from my office at the radio station, because I've got my wall of weird behind me with my skeleton and my all my photos and stuff. And so as I'm getting ready to start, I see that there's a chat room, and I'm like, oh boy, here we go. Like, whenever there's a chat room, you're just going to get trolled. And but everybody was so great in there, sharing ideas and thoughts and asking questions, and it was just a great. It seemed like a great community that had popped up throughout that. And I think those people kind of all get to know each other from hanging out in there during the course of the 4 days, and they really connect with each other. And I'm sure friendships are being made in that chat too. We've seen that happen in our own chat room, when we were still running YouTube for Spooky Southcoast, which we might get back to
eventually.
Maybe.
But yeah, you're right. That absolutely does happen. No doubt about it.
So getting back into your investigations, let's talk a little bit about equipment, and this might get a little geeky for the casual listener, but I think for those who are investigators, it's kind of it's the key part of the discussion. What are you utilizing these days on an investigation to capture audio or to communicate with spirits?
We use all sorts of things. Like I said, when I was first telling how we got started, I mean, we were using cheap digital recorders. Now, I don't want to mention brand names just because we're on the radio. But
no, you can. You certainly can if there's one that you recommend.
Tascam, Sony, Marantz recorders. I mean, high-quality professional digital recorders. They've got multiple mic inputs so that we can either use them as a standalone device. We can run line mics out from them. things that are recording at 96 versus 24 or 48. The higher rates of recording allow you to dig a little deeper into them as far as pulling back audio. We bought parabolic mics, which I never thought would work for EVPs, but let me tell you, they do. And we've had amazing EVPs come through on the parabolic mics that we use. We've got multi-track recorders. We've got all sorts of different types of microphones, omnidirectional, unidirectional, high-end specifics to pull higher-end tones. So that's kind of where we look at when we're trying to capture specific audio and audio responses. And so far, they have worked out extremely well.
One of the things that I learned over the years was, at least, because I'm an audio geek, I'm an audiophile, I want to have the best sounding quality that I can get. And one of the things that I've realized is the best quality recorder doesn't work if you don't have the best quality headphones.
That's very true.
Like I see people, utilizing earbuds to do their EVP work to go back and review the audio. They're using earbuds. I'm like, no, you can't. First of all, you really should be using something that is, not only noise canceling, but on the ear. That's
right.
That's the difference, because you want to kind of close in all the outside sound from being able to come in. And I actually saw one person they posted a photo, and I won't name who they are. They posted a photo on social media like, Sunday morning evidence review, and they were wearing a gaming headset. And I was like, oh, that's got to be the worst thing, because that's designed to have all multiple channels coming into it, Like it's
Correct.
Not giving you enough. I hate to sound like a snob, but I use Bose headphones because to me they create a spatial landscape that allows you to, or soundscape that allows you to be in the room.
Correct. And that's extremely important. The last thing you want is external noise when you're trying to decipher what you're hearing and what's been said. Any distraction from that can louse the whole thing up. And using earbuds if you're trying to hear something may be better than playing it off the recorder speaker itself. Yeah. But if you're truly going to really want to analyze what you think you're hearing and want to be able to verify and have other people listen and hear the same thing, earbuds aren't going to work at all for that. They don't have the speaker range. They don't have the frequency range. They don't have noise cancellation. You're subjecting yourself to so many outside variables that could greatly affect what the person listening thinks they're hearing.
You brought up a great point there. As much as I love everybody that buys tickets to our events and helps us raise money for historic haunted places, please don't come up to me with your recorder and be like, listen to this. Listen to this. Like, wait a second. I have headphones with me. Let me go get them. Because I can't tell you how many times people have given me a recorder and had me hold it up to my ear. And I'm just like, oh, yeah. I promise you I'm lying to you. I can't hear anything out of those crappy little speakers that are built into those things.
Well, there's times, too, people will send me stuff. Oh, my God, I just caught this. Please tell me what you hear. And I'm like, I'm out of the house. I only have my cell phone. I'll listen when I get back home. Well, just play it. You'll hear it. No, I'm outside. It's not going to happen.
Yep. And the other part of, when you're investigating, too, is people have to understand when you're playing it for somebody else, they're not there. So if they're listening to it after the fact, they don't know all of the ins and outs of what's going on during the investigation. So if you go back to them and ask them questions, they shouldn't get upset and be like, what are you trying to say? No, it's not one of us. Nobody was in the room. Yeah, but I don't know that until you tell me.
Yeah, when someone else plays something for you, too, you have to identify, because 9 times out of 10 when I get EVPs like that, there's multiple people talking. So you have to distinguish, okay, how many people are in this room? Where is the EVP located? At what timestamp? And you have to decipher all that. When you just hear it one time, you can't process all of that effectively in order to pull out what is being considered to be the electronic voice, and then turn around and be able to say what you think you're hearing out of all at once. It's too much, too quick to be able to do that.
And with that in mind too, give us something more. I mean, I don't want you to send me a 3-minute file, because nothing's worse than having to play a 3-minute file and then I'm like, where's EVP? But
Right.
also, don't give me just the 5 seconds that's the EVP either. I need to get acclimated to the room noise that's happening around it before I can actually,
And context.
Yeah,
Yep.
I need more. And so it's people don't give it to me boosted. Don't put processing and effects on it. Let me hear it raw. Then if you need to, boost it and everything afterwards, as long as I can hear the raw file, that's what I'm interested in. I'm not interested in, the fact that, because I've done it here. I worked in the newsroom here at the radio station, and we would get bad audio, we'd go to a ribbon cutting or a news event or whatever. You get bad audio. You come back in and you're trying to do what you can to salvage it, and you've got to do so much to it that by the time you have digitized the hell out of it, you've got all of this other, extraneous stuff that's happening around it, and everything just sounds like a jumbled mess. I don't want that. Just give me the pure, raw, what you think is an EVP.
Well, you can actually enhance EVPs into an audio if you mess with it enough, where it starts to sound like something that may sound like tone and voice and words. So you got to be careful with that too, because even if you are trying to just boost some volume and make it clearer, there's dangers in that as well.
And I always say, I've told this story before, that people have this perception that paranormal television shows, they're looking to just put anything up there and call it evidence. And I've told this story, numerous times, that when I was working as the researcher for Ghost Asylum, they would send me stuff and have me review it, and I would send them back like, this could possibly be an EVP, but I don't know what was going on. I don't know what filming was. And then they would email me back and be like, oh no, we reviewed the video. That turned out to be somebody from production. So they were always kind of on the up and up in that regard.
Nice.
So it's good that you can have, a television show do that. And speaking of television shows,
that's awesome.
You guys actually have the opportunity to investigate a place that's been seen on television. You have regular investigations of the old Phelps Dodge Hospital?
Yeah, we actually run it and operate it. We turned it into... We got an opportunity to go in there to investigate for just a few hours. And the activity just in those few hours, I'm like, okay, we've got to find a way to open this up to other investigators. And that was back in end of 2017, I think that happened. And it's been open as the Copper Canyon Paranormal Research Center. And we basically we use it like a paranormal lab. I mean, there's times we'll leave cameras running, parabolic mics running, audio recorders, and completely leave the building. We know there is no one in there. There's only 2 people that have keys, well, 3, but they're no longer in Arizona. So we know who can come in, and if the doors are locked and we lock them and walk away, there's no one in the building, and we can leave that equipment run overnight or for a day or 24 hours and come back and retrieve it. When we've got voices talking, we know there was nobody able to come in and out, as long as we checked with the other person that's got keys. But and we do 10-hour overnight investigations. Groups can rent it from 7 p.m. at night to 5 in the morning, which, there's a lot of places that you can go and do a paranormal investigation and they give you 5, 6, 7 hours. That time goes by so fast, especially when we were talking before about dragging in all the equipment, unpacking it, setting up cameras.
Stopping for pizza.
Well, exactly. And then you got to take a break to eat, and there's so many things that happen.
And breaking it all back down and hauling it all back out.
Right, and then taking everything apart, packing it back up, reloading it, takes a ton of time to do all that. So we wanted to give as much time as possible for an overnight. So we said, okay, 7 p.m., 5 a.m. to 5 a.m., which gives them a nice 10 hours to be able to investigate. And, the hospital's 30,000 square feet. It's not the biggest in the world, but for Ajo, Arizona, which has a population of, I think, about 3,000, it's a good-sized building for that town. And this place had activity in it that was just phenomenal. We've caught shadow figures. We have voice coming out of nowhere. We have doctors asking, literally, we have EVPs asking instruments. We have doors slamming. We have Just, it's relatively constant. There are definitely days that are why that happens or how that happens, I'm not sure. But it's pretty consistent overall, and that's what is so phenomenal.
We're losing you just a little bit, Tony. I think we're getting some spirit interference with your phone.
I did hear that. I heard another voice too. Not sure if that was you. Is it any better now?
It is better now, yeah. And I don't know where another voice would have came from.
Yeah, I heard another voice say "hey" or something, but that wouldn't be the first time that's happened.
Wasn't on this one.
I was going to say, are you on a 1960s party line, perhaps?
No, we got rid of that a couple years ago.
Okay. I mean, I don't know how the phones work out in Arizona, so I don't know. Now, what's a little bit of the history of this hospital?
Well, it was built in 1919. It was built by the New Cornelia Mining Company, and then it was purchased in the 30s by Phelps Dodge, who took over the copper mine in Ajo. And it was basically there to take care of all the medical needs of the miners that got hurt while mining, whether that be from cave-ins, whether that be from rock slides, because they were literally, trying to crack the rock away to when there were actual mountains there. Then they turned it into an open pit mine, and today it's an 1,100-foot hole in the ground. But they were still, at that time, I think the mine closed in 1986 when copper prices fell, and then they had union problems and work problems. So in 1986, they shut it down. So, of course, when the mine closed, so did the hospital. And then it sat vacant, really, for almost 40 years. And that was one of the most interesting things when we got in there to investigate, is that there were maybe a handful of people that had been in there in between. But even on one of the first...
Hello?
Oh, you still there? That got weird.
And it's still weird.
I wonder if... let me disconnect so that he can call back in. I wonder if maybe his battery was dying or something on his phone. I don't know.
Be.
I disconnected the call.
Or it could be something here. I saw your article about this place being haunted.
So
and how many times have we all said that?
I'm going to talk to you about that after.
Okay.
Because I might want to do something for next week's show with that. But hopefully Tony can call back in, and he's got the number, so we'll see if he can reconnect. But looking at this online.
Here we go.
Here we go. He's calling in. Looking at this online, I will say this much. The prices to rent this out are like in line if you were buying a ticket to an event.
Oh.
So you'll have the chance to actually get it for yourself. I'm sorry, Tony. You can continue on with the. We heard you kind of start talking a little bit about the history of the hospital, but then your phone cut out.
Yeah, I have no idea what's going on. It's a brand new phone. It's never given me any trouble before. It's kind of strange. But yeah, I was just explaining that. Actually, I don't even remember when I was explaining when it went dead. I was like, wait a minute.
You were saying that the mine closed in 86 and that was basically abandoned for close to 40 years. Only a handful of people had been in there. And then
when we first got in there and were able to operate it and run it as the Copper Canyon Paranormal Research Center, and when we spent, I don't even know how many nights in there, just my wife and I alone, just trying to capture stuff. And we were getting EVPs saying, who are these people? What are they doing here? I mean, it was amazing. It's like the spirits that were residing in this building weren't used to having people around. And all of a sudden, these two people, myself and my wife, are wandering the halls asking them questions. And that response was one of the most fascinating things to me about that building.
It's like the movie The Others.
There's some similarities.
Yeah.
And now, being a place called Copper Canyon, I'm assuming that there's still a lot of copper in the ground, even though I'm sure a lot of it was mined out. If you have a place that is a rich vein of copper, that's going to have an effect, I think, on the same way that copper conducts electricity, and that's why we put it in all of our electronics. It also helps to conduct paranormal activity, too.
You are absolutely correct. And the mine has plenty of copper left in it. They shut it down because the prices fell. When those prices rise high enough for them to begin mining it again, they're going to go back and do that. But you're absolutely right. I mean, copper is the number one metal to be used for electrical current. and it then becomes a material that could easily supply energy to the hospital, which is literally right across the street, and could be supplying energy for the paranormal activity that occurs there.
Just one quick question. I noticed on the website, looking at it, no seances allowed. How would you define a seance?
Well, we do that for two reasons. One, just because normally during it, and I hate to even say this because I might be looked at negative for it, but a lot of the seances that we've seen occur, A, aren't even done right. B, it's more of a joke, and bad things can happen from that. Now, I'm not claiming that a Ouija board is any different than any other paranormal tool, because in my own personal opinion, it's not. But the sense of just the environmental sense that usually goes with it. I mean, I've seen so many instances where they've been done, and they've just either been done poorly or people act up, not necessarily even from paranormal, but just so we avoid that.
So that's a no Ouija board rule, too.
Correct.
Okay, just making sure. So if I show up with my Ouija board in hand, I want to know that I can't bring it in. That happened to me with one place where I showed up and I had all these plans of doing something with it, and then the people were like, "Oh no, we don't allow those in here." I was like, "Well, there goes that experiment for the night." So it's always good to. I mean, I like to respect the the location's rules. I just need to know them ahead of time. So
right.
The other thing about this is, as I was mentioning, it is repeated, so you get to see what people are getting from these investigations there, and you kind of get to put together this long-term case study from not only your own investigations, but other approaches and techniques that the people are coming in and renting it out are using.
Absolutely. That's one of the most amazing things about it is that, we'll never tell new investigators coming or even ones that have returned, unless, of course, they ask and said, okay, we caught this. Have you ever caught that? Then, of course, we'll tell them. It's not that we're hiding anything, but we don't fill them with what we've captured prior. And when they can capture that same thing or that same voice or that same name, then, yes, it gives us a checklist to be able to say, okay, this person is there, that person is there. They are interacting with more than just us. This group just verified it, said, hey, we got this name. Hear this EVP, and not only do we recognize the name, but we can hear the voice as well and say, same voice.
Now, speaking of voices, we have some clips that you sent over, and I think that we can probably try and play some of these here. They should work. The only problem is get this, there was no audio player on this computer. I had to download.
Really?
I had to download Windows Media. So and it doesn't recognize the file, so I have to just open it with Windows Media each time. So it might just take me a second to upload each one and get them ready. But the first one here, now do we want to go through them kind of in the order that you sent them, the alphabetical order?
Sure, it makes no difference.
All right, so tell us about the first one then. What were the circumstances around this being captured?
Give me 1 second to just pull up that list, unless you just want to tell me the name.
I mean, usually I don't like.
I got it.
Yeah, I don't like to give the name out so that it gives away what people are going to hear.
Okay, this EVP was captured in the Hotel San Carlos. In fact, that was the building that I took my wife to 10.5 years ago. Now, this wasn't captured that night. This was captured probably a couple years later, but it was only her and I in the building. And we were in a closed section of the hotel, and we were upstairs behind locked doors. Her and I were the only two people in the room, and my wife is from the Philippines, and she has a very distinct Filipina accent. There's a woman that speaks, and I'm not going to say what I think she says, but there's no accent here. And it is not my wife. And that is where this EVP originated from.
All right, let's give it a play.
Should we turn off the light?
No.
It's not have a light.
No, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't stop them.
So what are people hearing there?
What they're hearing is because I am the light.
All right, so let's play that one more time.
Should we
Yeah, I heard it kind of right there, and it's almost like you're hearing it almost at the same time she's finishing talking.
Right. My wife asked me if we should turn out the lights, and I replied, no, it doesn't stop them. It won't make a difference. And this woman's voice comes in right in the middle and says, "'Cause I'm the light."
All right. Well, let's. And I hate to put it on EVP lightning round, but we'll just kind of go through them, one right after the other. I always end up doing that when I have EVPs to play. Is I wait till the end of the show because I like to build up to playing them because people love to hear them, and then I'm like, oh, I better just go through these as fast as I can. So we'll do the lightning round. How about the next one?
Next one was recorded at the Diplomat Hotel in Baguio City, Philippines, which is a very well-known haunted location. Matter of fact, most of the Filipino people won't even go in there, especially at night, just because they fear it. Cherie and I got to investigate an entire night in this place, and you'll hear two things. One, you'll hear a spirit say, when I was talking about being able to get the spirits to communicate with us, you'll hear him say, "I can help you with that." And then you will hear a spirit call my wife, Mrs. Rathman.
All right, so we'll play that for you.
We've tried to communicate with spirits all over the world now.
Pwede po ba kayo magpakita sa amin?
All right, and you were saying we heard there again?
Well, you can hear the first spirit say, when I was saying that we've spoken with spirits all over the world, he says, "I can help with that." And funny story about this one, and this one's got background noise, and the background noise is because it's pouring rain, and they have these channels that run down the walls into literally little rivers that flow out, and that's why you hear all that water sound. But these voices, they were using those natural sounds, plus you had running water on top of it, to bring out these voices. But then you can hear her call my wife, Mrs. Rathman.
All right, we'll play that one more time for folks. Oh, wrong mouse.
We've tried to communicate with spirits all over the world now.
Pwede po ba kayo magpakita sa amin?
Yeah, I definitely heard that. And by the way, sorry, go ahead.
I just heard something else in there too. There's a Latin statement in there, and we're still trying to figure out what it means. But there's a spirit, because we got EVPs in English, Japanese, Latin, and Tagalog, and there's a statement in there that says "Koji Lili," and we tried to trace it. Looks like it is Latin, but I have no idea what it means.
And that's all you're saying. You caught all that in there.
In that clip.
Yeah.
That was just in that clip.
Well, I also forgot to give my usual spiel to people to say, put your headphones on before we play these, but you'll be able to hear them on the podcast too. Because I know some people like listening on their home radios or they're listening in their car, and it might be a little bit harder to hear these. So we'll have the podcast uploaded pretty much immediately after the show. So then you'll be able to get it. If you use iTunes or some of these other ones, it takes a while for it to catch it and to put it into the feed. But usually some of them get them up within like an hour or two after we upload it. So you'll be able to hear it a little bit more in depth. Because I know sometimes it's hard on the apps if you're not using your headphones or what have you. And then you can really give it a little bit more of an intense listen. Let's go to the next one here on the list.
You got it. Next one again is Phelps Dodge Hospital. We hear carts rolling up and down the aisles. You can hear doctors' voices. You can hear patients screaming in this hospital. Apparently, I was standing holding the camera someplace they didn't want me standing. And you can play it and hear exactly what we think they said.
All right. Yep, they told you. They told you that pretty easily. Tell people what they heard there.
They heard "Don't stand there," and very loud and very kind of authoritative.
And I'll run that again. And so, did you not stand there anymore?
I haven't since.
There you go. Then that's as long as you're listening to what they tell you. That's the important part. Let me just.
It does make a difference. Respect has a huge play in all of this.
Okay, we can move on to the next one, and then we'll probably skip the one after that because that's the bad one.
Sure.
But this one here, what's this one all about?
The next one is from the Jerome Grand Hotel in Jerome, Arizona. I was coming up the elevator alone. I had probably 5-6 bags of paranormal equipment with me. You can hear the elevator running. I open the door, and then this child's voice says, clear as a bell, what he says, and I'll say what I think I hear after, but go ahead and play it.
All right. All right, what did people hear there?
What we're hearing is him saying, Tony, keep it bad, which I have no idea what that was supposed to mean, but that's what we hear.
Come on, keep it bad, be bad. Let's play it again for people. I kind of like the emphasis. Yeah, the diction there. It's very very interesting the way that he says it.
Very interesting, and he's dramatic about it. And there was nobody in there. How it even got there, and it's that's definitely a Class A. And the one thing people always say to us is, if you've got background noise like the elevator, don't do EVP. But over the last, I don't know how many years, we've noticed that we actually get less EVPs if it's dead silent. Mm-hmm. If there is background noise, they feel more free to talk. And so we never have stopped doing that. We literally record from the time we walk in to the time we walk out. Yeah, I mean, I like things to be as crystal clear as possible. But like you're saying, if I'm going long sessions and we're not getting anything, then, I'll start to, I might crack a joke. And then when you go back and you listen later on and you hear people laughing or, you hear people groaning because my jokes are terrible, usually in that noise, that's where you'll get some voices that will come through. Exactly. And usually it's telling me how terrible my jokes are. All right, skipping the FU one, which we just can't broadcast that over the air. The next one on the list. The next one was also recorded in the Phelps Dodge Hospital, and it was us asking for a nurse named Mary that's normally in there and will respond to us. And we asked if Mary was here, and this is the response that came through. All right. Mary, are you in here again? Yeah, you can hear that a little bit there. What are people hearing there? What we hear there is that this wasn't Mary. He says, I am Michael. I'm going to just boost that one up a little bit higher. Mary, are you in here again? There you go. Yeah. See that? Now I can hear it. It's a balancing act sometimes with feeding it out over the air, because if I push it too much up, we'll get feedback in it. So I just try to keep it at a good level. It's always hard with EVPs because the backgrounds are always different and the noise and everything else. So yeah, I understand your challenge. And we'll move on to the next one because we're doing good here for lightning round so far. No problem. The next one, also Phelps Dodge. We were having batteries drain on us left and right. I mean, we would literally take them off the charger from a full charge, put them in the camera. They'd last 3 to 5 minutes and dead. And my wife asked a question whether they were messing with our batteries, and this is what was said. All right. Here we go.
Oh, hold on, wait.
Yep. There you go.
Are you draining our batteries?
All right, let's play that again. Well, why don't you tell us what we're hearing there, and then I'll play it again.
What we believe he's saying, and again, that's what we believe, is he said, I took the battery.
All right, we'll play it one more time.
Are you draining our batteries?
Oh, yeah, I took the battery.
Yep. Yeah, he spaces out battery.
Some people pronounce it that way, though.
Yeah, they do.
No, very, very true. Very true. But that's the other cool thing about EVPs is that you can get accents, you can get dialect, you can get all sorts of information, even regardless of what they're actually saying.
You know, we were investigating a mansion in Rhode Island, and it was a small group of us. It was myself, Stephanie, Porter from Haunted Towns and Ghost Asylum, and
Sure.
then like 6 people that had bought tickets to this. And when we were walking around, we're utilizing like a Ghost Box app. Actually, I use EchoVox pretty much exclusively, and we had it running through one of those like speakers that kind of, you know, reverberates it a little bit more and all that.
Yep.
And as we're walking around, you know, not the Huff ones. Don't. I'm not getting into that. But as we're walking around, you know, we're picking up and like we can hear this voice, but we don't have any idea what it's saying. And we're like, this is so weird. And then all of a sudden, one of the people that was on the investigation, our friend Anna, she's like, well, that's Portuguese. And I was like, I've never caught, you know, Portuguese, at least that I was aware of. And so then she picks up the thing and she's walking around the mansion with it, having a conversation in Portuguese with whatever spirit was there. So, you know, it doesn't have to come the way that we expect it to come.
No, you're absolutely right. And speaking of EchoVox, that's probably one of only maybe 2 apps that I actually use, but EchoVox does work.
I mean, the problem with the apps is like the people that put them out there, they don't want to give you all the information about them to be able to have the confidence in using it. And Danny's always been like, yeah, I don't care. Here's the whole back end of it so you can tear it apart. And you realize there are no words in it. It's only syllabic sounds.
Phonetic sounds, yep.
And I've had complete sentences and sometimes even complete paragraphs come through.
You know what? There's one in here that came from EchoVox, so we'll get to play what they said to me.
All right. And one other thing, too. So have you utilized the Estes method on your investigations?
I have. And, you know, there's some real interesting things that come from that. And, you know, it's got to be done right. And, you know, noise-canceling headphones are an absolute must in that scenario case. But, yes, we have used it, and it has been effective.
And what do you utilize for the audio for your Estes method sessions?
Well, we've used what we call the EVOX, and it is our own hand-built spirit box that we've been perfecting over the last probably 8-9 years.
Oh, that sounds very interesting. But I would also say try giving EchoVox a try with that, and it makes a huge difference. And also, it just goes louder than some of the other spirit boxes people use. But I've utilized that, and the first time that I did it, I thought I was going to go crazy. Like it was just that intense. So anyway,
yeah, it's an amazing method. I completely agree.
Well, let's move on to the next one.
Okay, the next one. This is actually after we got Michael's name. This is the next night, me going in and asking him to speak with me.
Michael, are you here? You gave us your name. Can you speak with me? Let's communicate. I know you're here. Oh, I think I heard you.
Wow, that was pretty direct. What was being said there?
Well, first we think we hear him say, "I'm not ready," "I'm coughing," and then you hear, I said something about, "I know you're here, speak with me," and you hear this like multi-toned voice, like more than one voice, say, "We know."
So I'll run that one more time.
Michael, are you here? You gave us your name. Can you speak with me? Let's communicate. I know you're here. Oh, I think I heard you.
All right, let's try and get some more in here before we run out of time, but we'll move on to the next one.
Sure. The next one is in the basement of the Bel Air house. And there's a bunch of things said in here. I'm sure the listener's not going to catch them all. But the most important one is when I hear an actual voice speak, and I say to my wife, I think I heard a voice, you can clearly hear the response of, he found me.
All right, we'll run that.
It's freezing in here.
Oh, cool. Let us hear a voice. Come on, buddy, where you hiding? Okay.
All right, we're good.
A lot of conversation going on there.
Reminds
A
me
lot.
of in the basement where we got all of that stuff with Mike Markowitz down in the Bearing House.
Oh yeah,
Bearing
yeah. That still creeps me out. And I'll send you that one, Tony, so you can hear it. It was from an old 1690
to.
tavern.
Nice.
So what were people hearing in this clip?
The next one or the one we just played?
Just tell them again what they'll hear at the different intervals, and I'll play it one more time.
Okay, you can hear somebody say something about a pair of knuckles. You can hear, after I say, I just heard a voice, you can hear him say, he found me. I can't remember what's after that. I know I just heard it, but I can't, there's like 5 or 6 different sentences in there.
So we'll just run it again?
Yeah.
It's freezing in here.
Oh, cool. Let us hear a voice. Come on, buddy, where you hiding? Okay.
All right, we're good.
All right, and we probably have time to play one more out of what's left. Do we want to play the EchoVox one, or is there one in particular that you want to make sure that we run?
Yeah, can we have time for 2 really quick?
Sure, I'll just play them one time, and then people can go back and listen on the podcast.
Okay, great. Play the one that says the camera. This was a private home investigation. We were trying to identify whether there was something in the house. We had set up laser grids, motion detectors, night vision cameras, digital recording. And after all of that, this is what came through on an EVP as we were walking away, and we asked if he could move.
Can you walk up and down the hall for us?
Well, I can play that one more time. Just tell people what they're hearing.
What we hear is him telling us the camera is not working, which was absolutely correct. The night vision camera recorded nothing.
All right, here we go. One more time.
Can you walk up and down the hall for us?
Yep, the camera's not working. All right,
Yep.
we can squeeze in one
And
more.
then the last one's the EchoVox. This was actually in the Phelps Dodge Hospital. There were a group of about 4 or 5 of us. We were asking questions. And the EchoVox, which, like you said, is only tones and phonetics, not actual words. I'll let you play it, and then if we have time, I'll tell you quickly what I hear.
All right, which one is that?
It's the one that says, "Who's that?"
Okay.
Oh, I might have, yeah, it's the one that says, "Who's that?"
Yep. Here we go. Oh, yeah. So what were people hearing there?
First it says, "Who's that?" Then they say, "Tony." Then they say, "Our friend."
All right, one more time for you. All right. Well, Tony, thank you for joining us tonight and for sharing those with us. Real quick, if people want to reach out to you or if they want to book the hospital for an investigation, how can they reach out to you?
They can reach out to me through contact@entityvoices.com, email, or on our entityvoices.com site. For the hospital, they can go to www.coppercanyonprc.com.
All right, Tony, thanks again for joining us, and look forward to talking with you more in the future.
Sounds great. Have a wonderful evening.
You too. And for everybody out there, we are just about out of time. Thank you for tuning in tonight. Glad we can get in a whole bunch of those before we ran out of time. If you want to hear them again, you can download the podcast Spooky South Coast wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be back next week with another program. Until then, we want you all out there to stay spooktacular.